I am Ulysses B. Aparece, Vice President for Academic Affairs, Lapu-Lapu Cebu International College, located in Lapu-Lapu City, Cebu. My fields of interest are language, literature, and cultural anthropology. I love writing poetry in both Cebuano and English languages, as well as creative nonfiction, especially memoir. My researches are on shamanism in Bohol, published mostly in Philippine Quarterly of Culture and Society, based at the University of San Carlos, Cebu City. I am a true blue Boholano. My talk today centers on Saliabyan, in Bohol Shaman's Mugna. This Hulagway conversation series featuring the commonplaces of our lives highlights cultural terms that can be unpacked and expanded to discuss cultural identities that underpin indigenous worldviews. One cultural concept which I would like to explicate is the Cebuano-Visayan term of Mugna, which in English means creation. Here, I would like to focus on the endemic craft of word sharing in the form of storytelling by the shamans of northern Bohol. The shaman is a good storyteller. His stories are usually about his community's history. He tells about healing, his warrior ancestors, acquisitions of power, the process of becoming a shaman, the struggles in dealing with people outside of his community, the spirit guides, and the do's and don'ts of shamanship. There was one word mentioned in his chant which left a lasting impression in my mind: Saliabyan. This word seems to be absent in the vocabulary list of the more recent generations. This is now the main focus of my discussion. According to Pio, the shaman informant, his community friends and mine, and some dictionaries, Saliabyan, from the Visayan term sali, typically means pagtugyan, to entrust, or pagsalig, to confide. In this context, it can refer to placing trust or confidence in someone or something. This term is often used in expressions of reliance or trust in various situations, especially towards the abyan or spirit guides. I have gained deeper understanding about her through my ethnographic study on shamanic performances. Roughly then, Saliabyan is a female spirit guide who can be entrusted with some tasks by the shaman. Since one of my objectives is to share information about Saliabyan based on shamanic narratives and performances, I think my best way of retelling it to everyone is through poetic expression, which is my special kind of language. Intertextuality comes into the picture as it is a concept of literary theory referring to the way in which texts such as books, films, songs, and others are interconnected. It suggests that a text is not an isolated creation, but is influenced by and relates to other texts. The idea emphasizes that meaning is derived not only from the text itself, but also from its relationship with other texts. Intertextuality is a literary theory stating, and I quote, "All works of literature are a derivation or have been influenced by a previous work of literature. Any work of literature that is involved in this creation of a new text is considered intertextual. Some authors use intertextuality to deliberately place their work within a particular tradition or to bring attention to the work of another writer. Sometimes intertextuality can help audiences with a framework that makes it easier to understand a new work through comparison," unquote, by masterclass.com. Intertextuality between the shaman's narratives and my poetry started with my request of the shaman's revelations of Saliabyan in connection with my further studies about Francisco de Gojoy, the folk hero of the Boholanos. Pio, my shaman informant, said he would consult first with his spirit guides for their approval through the ritualistic healing practice. When Pio became immersed in the spirit's power and influence, as evidenced through trance, he started chanting in archaic language with a woman's shrill voice. He said, "Ako si Sora Socorra. Kumusta? I am Sora Socorra. How are you?" At the time, it was Sora Socorra who came, but there were other Saliabyan, notably Sora Soraida, Pagtakan, and Salimbunay, who would surface in other occasions. Sora, in my own ethnic understanding, supported by an online dictionary, is a Visayan archaic term which would mean pingog or voice in English. Socorra comes from the word sukor, which would mean help. The name would then be translated as a voice that helps. The other three Saliabyan, Sora Soraida, Pagtakan, Salimbunay, need further studies to determine the meaning of their names. The shaman's archaic language surfaces when he is possessed by the spirit. Some terms in the ritual language are explained by the shaman himself and some anthropological dictionaries. There are many ritual terms that can fill up a whole dictionary. Pio, now possessed by the Saliabyan, started to dance, hands planted on his hips with the elbows turned outward, and swayed from side to side gracefully instead of brandishing the pinote or sharp pointed bolo. Pio's voice became elevated in pitch, a female's voice. She asked for matam-ison or soft drink and greeted the women present. Pio, who was now the personified Saliabyan, would then offer soft drinks to everyone present, like Coca-Cola, and gave pieces of advice to the attending audiences, especially women, with a kind of language mixed with archaisms. Pio advised the wives to be humble and to always love their husbands and children. Pio then asked the women to dance around the consecrated offerings, one after the other. After the possession, and when Pio was back to his conscious state, he explained to me the roles of the Saliabyan. Back in the community's ethno-history to the time of Francisco de Gojoy, the Boholano hero, and beyond, she had to ensure peace and order, especially when the warrior ancestors would enter into heated arguments between and among themselves. She was given the special task of inviting the warrior heroes and the invulnerables. She would serve them soft drinks like Coca-Cola instead of their usual favorite white or red wine, which would make the arguing warriors even more intoxicated and agitated. She would advise them to forget their conflicts and dance for others to follow and just enjoy the moment. She would invite them to eat the boiled chicken eggs, slices of chicken meat, and choice pork parts. She was chosen for this duty because of her coolness, patience, self-control, and ability to achieve harmony, even in dealing with such tough characters as the spirit warriors. According to Pio, the Saliabyan was the wife of a shaman warrior whose duty was to assist her husband in the preparation of healing rituals that made use of leaves, roots, ritual offerings, and other ritual paraphernalia. In the event that the shaman husband would die or become bedridden or incapacitated because of illness, the Saliabyan would take care of their cave homes and continue the ritual of natural healing with roots and leaves. In the olden times, the caves were viewed as sacred grounds and a refuge to those who need help from the hermits and their wives, especially in matters of healing and wise advising. In the shaman's community, supernatural healing that involved spirit guides was the role given to men. I observe this in Piyo's shamanic healing obligations. After listening to the shaman's narrative and observing the Saliabyan dance, I have decided to share the cultural expressions through my own Mugna, which is my gift of poetry. Two Cebuano poems, Saliabyan, or Female Friend of the Spirit, and Ermitaño, or Hermit, were included in my book of poems, Orasyon o Lain Pang Bangayamyam, or Recitation and Other Incantations. They would be analyzed intertextually from emic and ethic perspectives. Here are the said English versions of the poems. Female Friend of the Spirit. In the measuring healers sharing a hidden narrative, like the stories about the Gukoy, conflicts about wisdom and knowledge from called ancestors cannot be avoided, threatening chaos through arguments. However, the female spirit friend comes without delay to unite herself with the healer in the chanted calls to enable the ritual evade disorder. The brave bearing of the healer is changed to the coming in of the female spirit friend. Gestures and words have become gentle as if displaying the hidden beauty. No more brandishing of the pointed bolos. Hands are placed on his hips, holding while mumbling the famous names, using the already tender voice. The healer dances, sways hips without pouring white wine, kulafo, or tanduay anymore. To the audience, only sweetened drinks are offered. After the ritual, the healer invites everyone for dinner, choosing delicious and tender parts of cooked rooster and white swine. Takes care especially of the distant visitors. They have food provision in going home. Accordingly, these are the usual chores of Sora Socorra, Salimbunay, and Sora Soraida. They are the spouses of healer ancestors, guardians of peace, comforters of worries, and relievers of anger, as well as threats and conflicts. Brave are the ancestors, as seen from the moves and words of the measuring healers who continue to serve the simple persons, assisted by their female spirit spouses who transform the measuring healer as their transitory home. The second poem is Hermit. He is a lover of solitude, resident of lonely places in the deeper portion of caves, growing and stirring the roots and leaves to cure the body and spirit's maladies in both words and thoughts. He is always asked that he may help us in his advice of endurance. We have learned of the residences: Cave of Kaomajanhon, Cave of Manadjaw Sajaw, Cave of Pagunog, Cave of Makabanhaw, Cave of Handog Handanaw, Cave of Kasutahan, Cave of Kainsikan, Cave of Kapiutan, Cave of Pagabunan, Cave of Paglumutan, Cave of Paglawigan, Cave of Pagugisan, Cave of Sora Socorra, Cave of Guba-Guba, Cave of Salimbunay, Cave of Mangilat Manaytay. It is difficult to find silence now. We are warned not to set foot inside the caves anymore, as they are inhabited and owned by beasts that are fierce but intelligent, while the others will just let go of their bodies' lust. We just locate now the caves in the alleyways of our minds, crawl back and measure the depths of previous quiet hours. Piyo's sharing of information about the Saliabyan was done through chants, largely in archaic language and shamanic dance performance. He explained this in commonly used Boholano-Cebuano terms. The knowledge obtained from the emic perspective or the internal point of view of the native and the researcher's ethic standpoint or outsider's knowledge yield the following insights. 1. From his emic perspective, the shaman Pio's mannerism from his stance as a warrior to the behavior of a graceful dancing woman was of his ancestors' liking and instruction. Kay mo'y gusto sa katiguangan. There was no attempt for a deeper explanation. All his reasons were in submission to the ancestors' code of practice. Pio revealed that if they do not follow the traditional ritualistic practices, no matter how unique they may be, they will be punished by their ancestors with migraine, body illnesses, deaths of livestock, even deaths of relatives. Number 2, from the ethics standpoint, the shaman Pio had to show his dual qualities or personalities as courageous man-warrior alternating with caring female nurturer. He sees both worlds important in connection to his healing functions. We can view this as cultural syncretism. An artist himself, he is a master of empathy, that is, putting himself in the shoes of the others, which is a very important component towards healing. 3. Intertextuality between the two versions, Pio's and mine, has attempted to make the storyline clearer and more enriched. Several scholars said that the poems in particular and the book in general are a welcome addition to the growing field of literary anthropology. In my second poem, I provided speculations for further discussion that, with the absence now of the hermits and the Saliabyan and their cave homes, fierce and intelligent beasts are taking hold of these places, and several others who would use the place to let go of their raging lust. 4. Intertextuality allows us to see connections and references between words which can enhance understanding and interpretation. By examining relationships, intertextuality uncovers deeper meaning, several ethnohistorical and cultural contexts, and the ways in which texts respond to or reshape each other. This approach can also highlight the evolution of ideas and themes across different time periods, ethnohistory and modernity, as in this case, and genres, oral narrative and written poetry, as shown in this discussion. In northern Bohol, my place of birth and home throughout the ages, I have observed closely that our women's general characteristics are somewhat following the examples set by the Saliabyan. Fearless peacemakers, keepers of home with or without their life's partners, nurturers of the family, especially the children, healers of maladies through devout prayers and reassuring presences, and more. Somehow, they have evolved into becoming wise decision makers, family and community heads, and political and ideological leaders. In fact, there have been talks that the underground movement had been led by female warriors or Amazons. This needs confirmation through research. Men, specifically fathers, have also followed the examples set by the shamans. There are many husbands who exhibit their toughness in passing judgments and yet show resilience and turn emotional when the family is at stake. In closing, cultural terms can thus be unpacked and expanded to discuss cultural identities, in this case, the creative concept of Mugna. In hindsight, we had the Mugna concept of the shaman featuring his Saliabyan narrative, being retold in my genre of poetry. Intertextuality was adopted to expound the cultural term of Saliabyan and its worldviews through emic and ethic perspectives. Daghang salamat.